Hey, I'm back. This is Chandler from Melda Production, and today I'm going to do a follow-up to the last video on creating a flute sound in MSoundfactory. Last time I went over the basic setup, so if you haven't seen that, definitely check that out before we go into this one, because I'm going to go from here, or from there, with this tutorial. Today I'm going to show you how you can add some different articulations, you can sort out some of the issues, and also just make it generally sound better. So, here we go. Make sure you have the octave up one if you want it to sound the same as mine. That'll just make it a little bit easier because I have a keyboard that's not so big. Here's the basic sound of it. One thing you probably noticed there is it seems like it's too loud. So the upper registers are really, really loud, and I want to fix that first. So the first thing we're going to do is go into here, the output. I'll bring this down, and I want to play the highest note that I think I might play with this instrument. So let's try this. Yeah, you don't need to play any higher than that. What I'm going to do here is I want to make this around -10 or so. So we're going to adjust the output up. That's a little bit over, but that's fine. So I'll just change this to -10. Now let's play the lowest note we think we might play on this, maybe here. You hear how that's so much lower? It's like around -30 or so. What we're going to do is use a key scale to actually fix that. So what I'm going to do is drag this key scale 1 here, and I'll just add it in here like this. Now, there should be about like a 20 decibel difference between those two. So what I'm going to do is change this depth to make sure this goes to 10, positive 10. So there. So this is -10, this is positive 10, roughly. And now in the key scale, since I played the lowest note here, like that, if you notice the cursor, it moves as I play. So play the lowest note again. Right here, where that lowest note's playing, I will stick a node, and then I'm going to move this all the way up like this. You hear that made it louder as opposed to this. There we go. Now we're going to do the same thing with the highest note. Be careful, this will get loud. So what I'm going to do is just do this first. There. Now where that one is, I'll just put this here. So now it should be more even. Now, of course, you can adjust that to taste. A real flute, actually, in the higher registers is louder than the lower registers, but this is a bit too exaggerated, so I wanted to fix that, so that's how you can do that. The next thing I want to do is you hear lots of high end, and that's not so good, so I want to reduce that with a low-pass filter. I'm going to use the FX section just because this will use less CPU. So we're going to take a bandpass filter, and we're going to just open this, turn the low-pass filter on, and just turn this down until it gets to where we like it, like this. I usually like it around 8,000. I'll let you hear it here, 8,000, and but of course you can set that lower if you like. Oftentimes if you record a flute close, you'll hear more of the breath sound, but if you record it farther away, you'll hear less of it. So you can set that however you like, and I might actually add that as a multi-parameter that you can adjust yourself. But that's how you do that. The next thing is very easy. We're going to add some reverb, like this. Have just a room sound in here, and just have it set it like this. Okay, you have that. That sounds a little bit better. Maybe turn that down just a bit. So now we have that sounding, for the most part, how I want it. But the next thing I want to do is I want to change the timbre. Last time I showed you how to adjust the different harmonics here. But what if I want slightly different harmonics to perhaps simulate a different type of flute, like a pan flute or a different model of flute, a wooden flute, bamboo flute, etc. Now we can analyze different types of samples to do that. But first, let's actually look at this and instead of doing it manually, show you how you can automatically change all the parameters here. What I want to do first is make a bank. So if I right click on the modal filter, I look at banks. I'll just do 2 for now, but you can do, as many as you want. 2, set this as bank 1. I'll update this now in case I want to change the multi-parameters later. And then I'm going to click save. We should have it saved now. The next thing I want to do is go into here and actually open it up, and I'll just call this type for the type of flute. Set this group as main, and then I'm going to go into the parameters, find the generator, find the modal filter, and then here the second parameter should be bank. I'll click OK. I know this is confusing, but here in the behavior, click bank. This is a different type of bank. And I'll set this to 2 because we set the number of banks in the modal filter to 2. Set this to 1, set this to 2, set the default there, and let's just call this normal. Okay, call this diff for different. And let's see, yeah, that should be set in the right place. Now that we have everything there, I'll make sure this is set to bank name. Turn off interpolate values, so you can see here how it's changing this. And for the, actually I'll leave it in a different row. And now it'll probably look a little bit strange on the screen. Like, what is this? I don't want that knob. So what we can do is click or hold Control, Alt, and Shift, left click on it, open this up, and we're gonna change this to something different. Let's try, you can either use the switcher here, or you might try the selector. That's just dependent on what you like. So we have these in here, and our normal, you see, is what we want. But if we change over to difference, this is completely different. It's not what we want. And I actually don't want it to be the same for both, but I want to use this as a starting place. So what we can do is just copy here, and then change it to difference, and we'll paste it like this. Okay. And from here, you can go and we can save this. Actually, we want to save it in here afterwards. But first, move all these up. We can go into here and save like this. Okay. From here, I want to go into, let's say here. Actually, let's turn this down because this can get loud. We're going to click Analyze Sample. You can set the threshold, I think it's by -80 by default, but I usually like to set it higher so I'm not getting lots of noise and things in there. I want to get actual harmonics of the instrument, so I like to set it a little bit higher like that. And we're just going to load a file. So whatever flute sound you have, let's try this one. Okay, and you see there's the waveform. We're going to move it someplace towards the middle where we're actually hearing something. And of course, we can move this around, and I wouldn't play while you're moving it, but move it to a place you might find interesting. This, and see. Or someplace else. Like, okay. If I think this is good, and you can see the harmonics might be slightly different than the other one, what I can do is just leave it here, like this. I'm going to try to memorize this. This is -37, I guess 9, and 27. So 37, 9, 27. That. I'll go here, and 37, 9, and 27. Seems like those are switched around, but let's try it anyways. Now, one thing here is this one is actually not a typical harmonic. You see it's like 1.5 instead of 2. But 3, this is usually our, I guess, second harmonic, second partial, I guess. So we can just switch this around. We'll copy it, turn it off, and then we'll paste it here. And from here, we'll just go into here and save it again. Now, when I change from these two, it should be slightly different. Like this. So let me turn the volume up on this so they're roughly the same. Save it. You can hear they're very similar, but there is actually some difference. I chose, these are two, I believe, concert flutes, so they're kind of similar. But if you choose a different type of flute, you will get different results. And of course, you can adjust this however you want, but this is a different way you can easily change the timbre of this. Next thing, let's add some flutter tongue. So to add some flutter tongue, what we can use is actually a simple tremolo. So we're going to go in here, left click any place. We're going to look in our FX till we find a tremolo. Now, if you have it like this, it's not going to sound like a flutter tongue. That's not too good. What we want to do is actually increase the rate, like maybe almost like 30 hertz. And you can increase the depth or decrease if you want, like this. And of course, we can add some kind of modulation to this. Let's say if I wanted to use the, let's say, mod wheel. I probably wouldn't want to use the mod wheel, but if I did, make sure this maxes out around like 50 or so. Okay, so now we have some tremolo. The same thing can be done with our vibrato. What we're going to do is just add vibrato module here. If you listen to it, it's probably not so good at first. Yeah, that's really too far. The rate is somewhat good, but what we want to do is turn the depth down. So play it, and then as we're playing it, we're going to decrease the depth. Okay, so I think that 0.3 is pretty good. We're going to do the same trick here, and we're going to add modulation wheel. Although, of course, you could use any kind of MIDI control you want. Set this to around 0.3 milliseconds, like this. And now we can turn the vibrato on like this. And you might actually want to adjust the rate the same way. So let's say I move the rate down to 3, and then I set this also for the mod wheel, and have this go to a little bit over 4, like maybe there. So now when I move the mod wheel, it's not only increasing the depth, but it's making it faster and slower. And that's how you can add vibrato. Another thing we can do here is you're probably thinking like, this flute sound is really breathy, and you may not like that. I don't like it so much. So I save this kind of for last, but I'll change the ratio down here. This will be very breathy. This. But let's increase that so it becomes less breathy, and we'll use the modulation wheel, although, to be honest, I'd probably use timbre or timbre, however you say it, and I would use this with an MP3 controller, but I don't have an MP3 controller, so I can't show you that. What we're going to do is decrease this to around -30. Oh, it's already set up. Great. And so now when I move it, it will become less breathy like this. And to be honest, that probably should be on different controllers so you can control these a little bit more accurately. But hopefully this gives you an idea of different things you can do. And you know what? I'll throw in one more. Oftentimes for flute, you can hear like the keys clicking. You're thinking, how can I do that? What we're going to do is we're going to add a few different modules. One is the mixer, because I want to mix this in very subtly. And then here on the third row, let's add this drum synthesizer 4in. Probably thinking I'm crazy and I don't know what I'm doing, but trust me. Let's go into editor here. Let's first add input 1, input 3. I'll steal the input. Let's just mute input 1 for now, so we're just hearing this. Now you should hear this and it sounds like a drum. Yeah, we don't want anything that sounds like that. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to turn the noise off. I have our oscillator here. I'm going to move this up, not too high, maybe around 500 or so. Move this down, not too low, maybe 160 or so. Change the envelope so it's the same throughout. And see here the length, 100, we want that way lower. Let's try like 20 milliseconds or something. Like that. Now let's hear it. That's closer. Move this down, frequency down a little bit. Change the speed like this. Now we need to turn this way down. Maybe turn the frequency up. Now, of course, I can adjust these to get different timbres. Get the exact sound you want, and then we'll add in the normal flute sound. Now, hear that and like, that's too low up here. That's closer, but still too loud. I can adjust this here, or I can go into the mixer and bring this down a bit. So you get more of that key click, and I would probably even turn it down lower than that because I think that's a bit too loud unless you have the microphone like right up to the flute. However, you get the idea, and that can be interesting sometimes, and that's something else you can add into it. So hopefully this gave you an idea of how you can kind of refine the flute sound, and hopefully you can use this on other instruments too if you come up with that. And if you do, let me know. If you enjoyed this, give me a thumbs up. Leave any comments or questions down below, and check out all the other plugins at meldaproduction.com. Till next time, see you.